Hey, what's going on everybody? Tom here for another music video breakdown. Instead of breaking down a music video, I'm going to be breaking down the settings I use when I shoot music videos. To jump right off, one of the things that I love to do when shooting videos is shooting at 48 FPS. But what 48 is, if you do the math real quick, if you divide that by 2, that equals 24. As many of you know, 24 is what most cameras shoot at for, just normal real-time 24 FPS, right? So 48 is basically doubling that. So 2 times 24 is 48. So what essentially you get is 2 times slow-mo. And one of the reasons I like 48 frames is it does 2 things. So when you're shooting at 24 frames a second, with a 180 shutter, that's typically where you sort of place your shutter. That means your shutter is at a 1/48. So that basically gives you a pretty standard motion blur for, shooting a cinematic thing, or, that if you were to move your hand across the frame, it would naturally blur the way the human eye sees it, right? Well, when you shoot at 48 frames a second at a 180 shutter, your shutter is actually a 1/96. So what's really cool, what the sweet spot of shooting at this right here is you could times the footage to end up replicating 24 frames, though the shutter wouldn't be the same. So if you times your footage by 2 in post, you can actually make your footage real time. But what's really cool about 48 frames is you get a twofer. You basically get a slow-mo pass. So in the edit, your footage, your artist is moving in slow-mo. But what's really cool in the edit is if you blade tool and speed up the footage times 2, you get 24 frames. So if there was a moment where the artist was going, then you want them to pop off and then slow down, that's really cool. And what's nice about 48 when shooting at 180 is your shutter is sharper. So when you do speed it up to 24 frames, the motion blur, if they're sort of moving and stuff, isn't gonna be blurry. So your subject is gonna appear sharper because the shutter is at a 1/96 when shooting at 48. So I know that's a mouthful. I mean, this is something where you just need to go out in the field and experiment and practice. If your camera